Nobody believed the scarred German Shepherd could be a hero again. They called him washed up, damaged goods, even dangerous. But on a rainy Tuesday in Millfield, Ohio, Thunder would prove them all wrong in a way that would make the entire nation weep. What you're about to hear is the true story of the most unlikely hero. And before we start, make sure to hit that subscribe button because this story will restore your faith in second chances. The moment Thunder broke free from his leash and charged toward the white van, everyone thought he'd finally snapped. They had no idea he was about to save not just one life, but expose a trafficking ring that had terrorized families for years. 6 months earlier, Thunder had failed. The warehouse in Detroit still haunted his dreams. Dark corridors where he'd searched frantically for 7-year-old Michael Chen, following scent trails that led to empty rooms and cold concrete. By the time police found Michael's body, Thunder had been digging through debris for 18 hours straight, his paws bloody, his heart shattered by a failure he couldn't understand. That was the night Thunder stopped eating, stopped trusting, stopped believing he deserved to wear his service vest. Now at 6 years old, Thunder's left ear bore the permanent droop of damaged hearing from an IED blast in Afghanistan. The jagged scar running from his left eye to his jaw told the story of flying shrapnel, but it was the defeat in his golden eyes that truly revealed his wounds, the hollow stare of a guardian who'd lost the one thing that mattered most. Captain Jake Morrison understood that look. He saw it in his own bathroom mirror every morning. At 38, Jake moved through the world like a man carrying invisible weight. His studio apartment on Elm Street was spartanly furnished. A folding table, a mattress on the floor, and Thunder's oversized dog bed that cost more than Jake's monthly grocery budget. The walls were bare except for a single frame photograph. Jake in dress uniform beside a younger, confident Thunder at their deployment ceremony. "Two broken soldiers," Jake whispered, clipping the worn leather leash to Thunder's collar. "But we're still breathing, aren't we, boy?" Thunder's tail lifted slightly, the first positive response Jake had seen in weeks. When Jake had driven 8 hours to the military dog retirement facility, the director had been brutally honest. "This dog has severe PTSD. 3 foster families returned him. Won't eat, won't bond, destructive episodes. The Detroit incident broke something inside him." Jake had stared into Thunder's hollow eyes and recognized his own reflection. "We'll heal together." Now, 6 months later, Thunder wore his faded service vest not because he was working, but because the familiar weight reminded him who he used to be, made him stand straighter, breathe deeper. "Ready for our walk, soldier?" Millfield Elementary sat at the heart of their daily route, a red brick sanctuary where children's laughter echoed like distant music across autumn-painted playgrounds. Jake worked security during night shifts, walking empty hallways where Thunder's nails clicked against polished floors with military precision. The job barely covered rent and dog food, but it kept them housed and away from well-meaning neighbors who whispered about that damaged veteran and his broken dog. Mrs. Henderson from apartment 2B led the chorus of complaints. "That animal has nightmares, Jake. The howling keeps my granddaughter awake. It's only a matter of time before he snaps completely." But Mrs. Henderson had never witnessed the miracle that occurred every morning at 7:45 a.m. outside 247 Maple Street. Emma Patterson would emerge from her house like clockwork, 8 years old with braided hair and a backpack covered in rainbow patches, searching the sidewalk until she spotted Thunder. Her face would transform with pure joy. "Thunder, my hero dog!" The change in Thunder was extraordinary. His battle-scarred ears would perk forward, his golden eyes would brighten with purpose, and something ancient and protective would stir in his chest. He would sit without command, allowing Emma to stroke his weathered muzzle through the chain-link fence. "Mom says you saved soldiers in the war," Emma had confided one morning, her small fingers gentle against his scars. She says real heroes protect people even when they're scared inside. Thunder had pressed his nose against her palm, a gesture so tender that Jake's throat had tightened with unexpected emotion. "Are you scared sometimes?" "Thunder," Emma had whispered, if only she knew. Thunder was terrified of everything. Sudden noises, approaching strangers, the darkness where Michael Chen's ghost still whispered accusations. But around Emma, his shattered confidence began rebuilding itself, piece by fragile piece. Jake attributed the transformation to normal canine behavior. Children and dogs naturally connected, right? He had no idea that Thunder's specialized training ran deeper than basic obedience. The dog had been specifically trained in human trafficking detection, taught to recognize fear pheromones, restraint chemicals, and the stress hormones released by kidnapped victims. He had no idea that Thunder's enhanced senses could detect danger from blocks away, or that Emma Patterson was about to become the test that would either redeem Thunder's faith in himself or destroy what remained of his soul. Marcus Tank Wilson adjusted his rearview mirror and studied Emma Patterson through the telephoto lens of a professional camera. Day 4 of surveillance, day 4 of documenting her routines, timing her schedule, identifying the 15-minute window of vulnerability between school dismissal and parental pickup. Tank had perfected his method across 6 states. Appear helpful, gain trust, strike fast. A flat tire, a lost puppy, an urgent message from mom. Children wanted to help, wanted to believe adults were safe. He'd never been caught because he never deviated from the plan. Emma represented a significant payday. Blonde, young, from an upper-middle-class family with documented security gaps. The buyer in Detroit had been specific about requirements, and Emma fit every criterion perfectly. Tank shifted in his white Ford Transit van and froze. A German shepherd stood motionless on the sidewalk, staring directly at his concealed position. The dog's handler, some guy in a security uniform, was checking his phone, oblivious to everything around him. But the dog, Tank had encountered police K9s before, during his criminal career. This was different. This dog wasn't alerting to drugs or weapons. This dog was reading him, cataloging his presence, measuring the threat level he represented. Their eyes met across 50 yards of suburban street, and Tank felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine fear. "Just paranoia," Tank muttered, shifting the van into drive. As he pulled away, he watched his rearview mirror. The German shepherd tracked his movement until the van disappeared around the corner, head tilted with intelligent assessment. Tank's hands tightened on the steering wheel. In his line of work, paranoia meant survival, but he'd never been stared down by a dog that seemed to understand exactly what he was planning. He'd have to be more creative, more careful. The plan would need to evolve. Monday afternoon, 3:47 p.m. Jake clipped Thunder's leash with practiced efficiency, grateful for October sunshine that had followed weekend rain. Thunder had been restless all morning, pacing from window to door, whimpering with an anxiety that set Jake's own nerves on edge. "Come on, boy. Fresh air will help us both." They'd barely turned onto Maple Street when Thunder's entire body went rigid. His hackles rose in a sharp ridge along his spine. Intelligent gaze locked onto something Jake couldn't identify. The white van, parked across from Millfield Elementary, engine running, tinted windows concealing the driver. Thunder's breathing became rapid, controlled. His combat assessment mode engaging for the first time since Detroit. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Thunder hadn't displayed this level of alert behavior since Michael Chen, since the case that had broken them both. "Thunder, easy. It's just a delivery van." But Thunder wasn't listening. A low, urgent whine escaped his throat, the specific vocalization he'd been trained to make when detecting human trafficking indicators. Stress hormones, fear pheromones. the chemical signature of zip ties and duct tape. Other parents began staring. Mrs. Williams pulled her toddler closer. Mr. Peterson crossed to the opposite sidewalk, shaking his head disapprovingly. "That dog's finally cracking," someone whispered audibly. Jake's cheeks burned with humiliation. This was exactly what everyone had predicted. Thunder snapping, becoming the dangerous liability the whole neighborhood expected. "Thunder, heel!" The command was sharp, authoritative, delivered in Jake's best military voice. Thunder looked back at him for a heartbeat, golden eyes desperate with urgent communication, then made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He broke free. The leash slipped through Jake's fingers as Thunder surged forward with explosive power, charging directly toward the white van. Parents screamed. Children scattered. Car brakes squealed as Thunder bounded across the street with single-minded determination. The van's engine roared to life, tires shrieking against asphalt as it accelerated away from the school zone. Thunder reached the empty parking spot and circled frantically, nose pressed to the ground where the van had been, reading scents invisible to human perception. Jake ran after him, chest tight with panic and shame. "Thunder, come!" By the time he reached his partner, an angry crowd had gathered. Accusatory faces, worried whispers, children pointing from behind their parents' legs. "That animal is dangerous," Mrs. Peterson declared, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling animal control." "He didn't hurt anyone," Jake protested, clipping Thunder's leash with shaking hands. "This time," Mrs. Williams replied coldly. "What about next time?" Thunder sat perfectly still beside Jake, panting heavily, eyes still scanning the street for the white van. His posture wasn't aggressive or random. It was professional, purposeful, the stance of a working dog who detected a legitimate threat. But Jake couldn't see what Thunder saw, couldn't smell what Thunder smelled. All he could see was his partner's reputation and his own crumbling around them. Tuesday evening, 5:15 p.m. Sarah Patterson stood on her front porch, car keys dangling from trembling fingers, staring at the empty sidewalk where her daughter should have appeared an hour ago. Emma was never late. Never. 8 years old and already more reliable than most adults, she took pride in her precise routine. Dismissal at 3:30, 6-block walk home, arrival at exactly 4:10 p.m. for her afternoon insulin injection and snack. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from Emma's teacher. Emma left at regular dismissal time, seemed happy. Everything okay? Everything was catastrophically wrong. By 6 years, Sarah had contacted every parent on Emma's class list. By 6:30, she was on the phone with Millfield Police Department, trying to convince a bored dispatcher that her diabetic daughter hadn't simply lost track of time. "Ma'am, kids this age get distracted. She probably—" "You don't understand," Sarah interrupted, pacing frantically. "Emma has type 1 diabetes. Without her evening insulin, she could go into diabetic shock within 24 hours. She knows this. She would never be late." The dispatcher's tone shifted. "We'll send a patrol car to check her usual route. If she's not home by 8 p.m., we'll file a missing person report." Sarah hung up and immediately called her husband, David, who was driving back from a conference in Cincinnati. By the time he arrived at 8:30, 2 police officers sat in their living room, asking routine questions with professional detachment. "Any family disputes? Recent changes in Emma's behavior? Places she might hide?" Sarah answered mechanically, but her mind kept returning to Emma's morning ritual. The enthusiastic wave to the German Shepherd and his owner, the careful way she always looked both ways before crossing streets, the mature responsibility she showed managing her medical condition. Emma wasn't a child who wandered off. Emma was a child who'd been taken. 3 blocks away, Jake Morrison sat on his apartment floor, watching Thunder pace restlessly between window and door. The dog hadn't eaten in 36 hours, hadn't settled, hadn't stopped the low, anxious whimpering that made Jake's skin crawl with recognition. He'd seen Thunder behave exactly this way once before. In Detroit, the night before they'd found Michael Chen's body, Thunder had known something was wrong, had tried desperately to communicate. Jake had dismissed it as random stress behavior. 24 hours later, Thunder had been digging a child's grave with his bare paws. "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" Jake whispered, reaching out to stroke Thunder's battle-scarred muzzle. Thunder pressed his nose against Jake's palm, golden eyes desperate with communication Jake couldn't translate. Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, heading toward Maple Street. Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. Jake stood before his bathroom mirror, electric razor buzzing against his jaw, when Thunder's bark shattered the morning silence. Not his usual alert bark, but the deep, urgent sound he'd made outside the school. The sound that had humiliated Jake in front of half the neighborhood. "Thunder! Quiet!" But Thunder ignored the command. He stood pressed against the living room window, body rigid, staring toward Maple Street where police cars lined the curb outside 247. The Patterson house. Jake set down his razor and joined Thunder at the window. Police officers moved systematically in and out of Emma's front door, carrying evidence bags, establishing a perimeter. A news van pulled up to the curb. "Missing child," Jake murmured, understanding flooding through him like ice water. "Emma!" Thunder whined, that same desperate, urgent sound he'd been making for 36 hours. Jake's military training engaged, connecting dots his civilian mind had missed. The white van, Thunder's alert behavior. The timing of Emma's disappearance. "Dear God, you knew, didn't you? You tried to warn me." Jake rushed to his bedroom closet and pulled out a cardboard box labeled "Military Records Do Not Open." He hadn't touched it since moving to Millfield, couldn't bear revisiting reminders of what they'd both lost. But now, Thunder's comprehensive service records detailed specialized training Jake had only partially understood. Explosive detection, drug interdiction, and there, highlighted on page 4, human trafficking detection, an experimental program that taught elite military dogs to identify victims through scent markers of fear, restraint, and specific chemicals used in kidnapping scenarios. Thunder hadn't been randomly aggressive outside the school. He'd been doing his job, trying to prevent another Michael Chen. Jake grabbed his phone and dialed the police non-emergency number, hands shaking as he waited for someone to answer. "Millfield Police Department. This is Jake Morrison. I need to speak with whoever's handling the Emma Patterson case. I have information about a possible suspect vehicle." 40 minutes later, Detective Sarah Chen sat in Jake's sparse living room, notepad balanced on her knee, studying Thunder with professional interest. The German Shepherd lay at Jake's feet, alert but calm, golden eyes tracking every movement. "You're telling me your dog detected human trafficking indicators near the school Monday afternoon?" "I know how it sounds," Jake said, "but Thunder was specifically trained for this in Afghanistan. He's never wrong about real threats." Detective Chen looked skeptical. "Mr. Morrison, we appreciate any information, but we can't base an investigation on animal behavior. Dogs react to delivery trucks. Other dogs, random stimuli." Thunder lifted his head and stared directly at the detective, his intelligent gaze holding an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "What exactly did you observe Monday afternoon?" she asked finally. Jake described the white van, Thunder's reaction, the way the vehicle had fled when Thunder approached. Detective Chen documented everything, but her expression remained neutral, professional. "We'll add this to our report," she said, standing to leave. "If you remember any other details, license plate numbers, distinctive features." After she left, Jake sat on the floor beside Thunder, stroking the dog's scarred ears with gentle reverence. "She doesn't believe us, does she, boy?" Thunder's response was immediate. He stood, walked to the door, and sat in perfect military position, the signal for ready to deploy. You want to go find her yourself. Thunder's tail gave a single, determined movement. Jake stared into his partner's eyes and made a decision that would either save Emma Patterson or destroy what remained of their lives in Millfield. Okay, soldier, time to finish what we started. Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m., Jake secured Thunder's military vest around the dog's broad chest, checking each buckle with the precision of a soldier preparing for combat deployment. The vest was faded, worn from years of desert operations and urban warfare, but it still fit perfectly. More importantly, it transformed Thunder from damaged pet to elite K9 operative. This is completely unofficial, Jake whispered, crouching to look directly into Thunder's golden eyes. No backup, no authority, no safety net. If we're wrong about this, we're both finished in this town. Understand? Thunder's response was immediate and decisive. A single bark of acknowledgement, tail held high, muscles coiled with renewed purpose and confidence. They began at Millfield Elementary, where Thunder immediately locked onto a scent trail Jake couldn't detect. The dog moved with systematic precision, nose to the pavement, following an invisible path that led away from the building toward the industrial district on the town's eastern edge. The trail wound through residential neighborhoods where Jake received suspicious stares from homeowners, past the abandoned railroad yard where rusted boxcars sat like mechanical graveyards, and finally toward a cluster of warehouses that had been empty since the textile mill closed 3 years ago. Thunder's pace increased as they approached a gray metal building with boarded windows and a weathered for lease sign hanging askew on a broken chain. He stopped at a side door, hackles rising, and gave the specific alert signal he'd been trained to use for confirmed human trafficking detection. Jake's combat training surged back to life. Reconnaissance first, assess the threat, identify escape routes, plan for multiple contingencies. He circled the building while Thunder maintained position at the door, noting a white Ford Transit van parked behind the warehouse, partially concealed by overgrown vegetation. The license plate was deliberately mud-covered, unreadable. Jake pulled out his phone and dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? I need police and paramedics at 1247 Industrial Way immediately. Possible kidnapping victim located in abandoned warehouse. Sir, can you confirm you've actually seen a victim? Jake hesitated. He couldn't confirm anything without entering the building, and he couldn't wait for police who might dismiss his call as another unstable veteran report. Send backup, he said firmly. I'm going in. He disconnected before the dispatcher could argue. Thunder waited at the door, every line of his body radiating controlled readiness. Jake tested the handle, unlocked, as if someone had been careless in their confidence. He looked down at his partner, seeing not a damaged dog, but the elite K9 warrior Thunder had always been. Despite Detroit, despite failure, despite everything. Just like Afghanistan, boy. You take point. Thunder's golden eyes blazed with recognition and purpose. He was home. The warehouse interior was a labyrinth of shadows and stale air, broken only by thin beams of afternoon sunlight filtering through boards nailed across high windows. Thunder moved like liquid confidence, his military training fully engaged, guiding Jake through the darkness with silent signals Jake remembered from dozens of combat missions. They found Emma in a makeshift prison constructed from shipping pallets and plywood, zip-tied to a metal folding chair, duct tape across her mouth, but alive, conscious, terrified but remarkably unharmed. Thunder approached her with infinite gentleness, pressing his battle-scarred muzzle against her bound hands in reassurance. Emma's eyes widened with recognition and overwhelming relief as Jake worked to cut her restraints with a tactical knife he'd never stopped carrying. Thunder found me, she whispered when Jake removed the tape from her mouth. I knew he would come. I knew he was a real hero, dog. But their reunion was devastatingly short-lived. Heavy footsteps echoed from the warehouse entrance, followed by rough voices Jake recognized as immediate danger. Tank, the van's still here, but something's wrong. Door was supposed to be locked tight. Check the package immediately. We move in 10 minutes. Jake's blood went Arctic cold. Emma wasn't alone in this nightmare. She was part of something bigger, more organized, infinitely more dangerous than a single kidnapper. And whoever Tank was, he was returning with accomplices. Thunder positioned himself between Emma and the approaching voices. Every combat instinct locked onto maximum protection mode. Jake made a decision that violated every tactical principle he'd ever learned. Emma, can you run when I tell you to? She nodded weakly, trust absolute in her young eyes. When I say go, you run straight for that exit door. Don't stop, don't look back, don't wait for anything. Thunder will be right beside you every step. What about you, Mr. Jake? Jake checked his phone. No signal in the metal building. The 911 call might not have gone through properly. Police might not be coming, but Thunder and Emma deserved every possible chance to escape alive. I'll buy you time to get away. The footsteps were closer now, more urgent. Jake could see flashlight beams sweeping the warehouse floor, moving systematically toward their hidden location. Go, now! Thunder and Emma moved as one perfectly coordinated unit, the dog's military training seamlessly adapting to protect a child instead of a soldier. Jake watched them reach the exit door just as Marcus Tank Wilson rounded the corner, flashlight beam illuminating Jake's defensive position. Who the hell are you? Tank's voice was rough, dangerous, absolutely furious. Jake stepped into the light, hands raised but ready for combat. Wrong place, wrong time. Just leaving. Tank's expression shifted to recognition, then pure rage. You're the guy with the dog, the one who's been watching my operation. Behind Tank, two armed accomplices emerged from the shadows, both carrying weapons, both positioned to prevent any escape attempt. That was your last mistake, Tank continued, pulling a pistol from his waistband. A very expensive mistake. Jake heard Thunder barking outside, not distress, but the rapid-fire alert pattern that meant law enforcement approaching. The 911 call had gone through. Backup was finally coming, but not fast enough. Tank raised his weapon just as Thunder burst back through the door, moving with the explosive speed and devastating power of an elite military assault dog. The German Shepherd's 85 pounds of muscle and determination hit Tank's center mass, driving him backward into a stack of wooden pallets. The gun fired once, deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. Thunder stumbled, crimson spreading across his battle-scarred ribs, but refused to fall. Instead, he positioned himself between the armed men and the door where Emma waited in safety, hackles raised, golden eyes blazing with protective fury that transcended pain. Thunder, no! Jake shouted. But the dog had already made his choice. Michael Chen would not happen again, not on his watch. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing rapidly closer. Tank's accomplices looked at each other, at their wounded leader, at the bleeding dog who absolutely refused to back down or show weakness. They broke ranks and ran. Tank struggled to his feet, gun still in hand, desperation and rage warring in his eyes. That damn dog cost me everything. 6 months of planning, 3 states worth of business, all because of one scarred mutt who should have been put down. He raised the weapon toward Thunder, who stood swaying but utterly defiant. Jake didn't think, didn't plan, didn't hesitate for even a heartbeat. He launched himself at Tank as the gun fired a second time, both men crashing into the warehouse wall in a violent tangle of fists and desperation. The weapon skittered across concrete into the shadows, useless. By the time police officers flooded the warehouse with tactical lights and drawn weapons, Tank Wilson was unconscious. Jake was bleeding from a split lip but standing, and Thunder was lying on his side, breathing shallow but steadily, with Emma's small hands pressed gently against his bloodied muzzle. "You came back for me," she whispered to the wounded warrior. "Even when you were hurt, you came back. Just like a real hero." Thunder's tail thumped once against the concrete floor, weak but determined. Heroes always do. 8 months later, Thunder stood proudly on the steps of Millfield City Hall, wearing a gold medal of valor around his neck and a brand new K9 vest marked Official Hero Dog of Millfield, Ohio. Mayor Patricia Williams, the same woman who'd once called him dangerous, hung the medal while news cameras captured every moment for a story that had already gone viral across social media. Emma Patterson, healthy and radiant, stood beside Jake as he accepted Thunder's commendation. The German Shepherd had made a complete recovery, his wounded ribs healing stronger than before, his confidence fully restored by purpose, recognition, and the knowledge that he'd finally succeeded when it mattered most. The investigation sparked by Thunder's detection had uncovered a massive 3-state human trafficking network, leading to 23 arrests in the rescue of 18 children. Tank Wilson was serving life in federal prison without possibility of parole. "Thunder saved my life," Emma told the crowd of reporters and well-wishers gathered on the courthouse steps. "But really, he saved lots and lots of kids. He's the best hero dog in the whole world, and I love him forever." Thunder's tail wagged slowly, golden eyes bright with contentment as children from Emma's school lined up to meet their local celebrity. Each child received a Thunder's Heroes safety whistle and an information card explaining the hand signals that could save their lives in dangerous situations. Jake, now head trainer for the county's newly established K9 Human Trafficking Detection Unit, watched his partner work the crowd with professional dignity and gentle patience. 4 other military retirement dogs had joined their team, each one a broken veteran finding new purpose in protecting the innocent. Mrs. Henderson from apartment 2B approached Jake during the ceremony, her granddaughter's hand tucked safely in hers. "I owe you both an apology," she said quietly. "I was completely wrong about Thunder, about both of you." "We all have scars," Jake replied, stroking Thunder's ears with infinite tenderness. "Some are just more visible than others. What matters is what we do with our second chances." As the ceremony concluded and the crowd dispersed, Jake and Thunder walked home through the same neighborhood where they'd been outcasts just months before. Now children ran to windows to wave at Thunder, parents nodded respectfully, and even delivery drivers stopped their trucks to say hello to the famous hero dog. At 247 Maple Street, Emma waited on her front porch as always, backpack ready for another day of 3rd grade. But now Thunder wore an official vest, and his morning visits were part of the school's safety program he'd helped inspire and develop. "Hi, Thunder," Emma called out, running to give him his daily hug. "Ready to protect everyone today?" Thunder's response was immediate and confident, a single bark of acknowledgement, tail held high, muscles relaxed but ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. He was no longer a broken warrior haunted by failure and guilt. He was Thunder, protector, hero, and living proof that sometimes the most wounded among us are capable of the greatest courage and the most profound redemption. The evening news broadcast ended with footage of Emma singing softly to Thunder in the hospital, a video that had been shared over 2 million times with the hashtag Thunder the Hero. The anchor's final words resonated across living rooms throughout Ohio and beyond. In a world that too often discards the damaged and dismisses the different, Thunder has shown an entire community that every living being deserves a second chance to prove their worth. And sometimes, just sometimes, the heroes we need most are the ones nobody believed in. Remember to share this story to spread awareness about child safety signals, and subscribe for more incredible true stories of animal heroes who remind us that courage comes in all forms, and second chances can change everything.